Ross Mollison. Haha. How
John,
you doing,
lovely
sir?
to see you. I'm wonderful.
Good. Yeah, I've been thinking about all the interviews we've done over the years. We've been in New York and Scotland and Las Vegas, and the whole time you've been here, it's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you, and get the read on what's happening in your universe. So thank you in advance for spending time with me again.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be here. I came down on Thursday, the first day that Vegas opened.
Yeah.
From New York. I'd been in New York, I think it was 89 days in quarantine.
Ooh.
And flew down here, and it's just great to be back. And I think, you get a real sense of the excitement people feel at being back to work and seeing Vegas open.
What was the flight like? How was the vibe on that trip?
It was quiet. It was very quiet, and it felt very safe. And, I'm very conservative about these things, and had my mask on the whole way.
Yeah.
And I went to bed very late and got up very early, so I really slept most of the way. So I don't know much what happened, but I got here in Vegas, and I walked out, and McGarren was very quiet as well.
Mm-hmm. What have you been doing since you've been returning to the city?
Well, I've just been going out, and I've been to Mayfair Lounge, as you know. I went there. I wanted to see the first show back on stage in Vegas, and that was it.
Yeah.
On June 4. And then I've walked the Strip. I've walked Fremont Street. I've been seen a lot of my friends who work here and talked to them about their strategy and talked to them about how it's going, and just getting the measure of how we should and when we should reopen our shows.
Yeah, I get it. I saw you at Mayfair. What did you think of that presentation?
I thought it felt really exciting to be out. I felt like the audience was super motivated.
Yeah.
They were and it wasn't the full-on Mayfair show that I'd seen in the past. It was done to be safe and socially distanced from the audience. And, it felt very distanced, and we all felt very comfortable being there. Yeah. And I think every second booth was occupied. Right. And the food was delicious. So
that's right. You've got three shows that are obviously very prominent in Las Vegas, beginning with Absinthe. Given all the uncertainty we've had, and in your conversations about how to deal with that uncertainty, what is the strategy for returning to the stage right now? How do you step your way into actually putting a show back on?
For us, it's taking what we have and examining what's possible. And I think we've looked at what everybody else is doing, or read what we can about what everybody else is doing, from going to a drive-in to and seeing how you operate a drive-in, which I've done, through to going to Mayfair Lounge and talking to the guys from Cirque Du Soleil as to what they're thinking. For us, we're looking at how we can operate a business model. I think that's what it comes down to for everybody in Vegas. Whether it's the Review Journal or a resort or a show, you want to say, right, well, I'm going to have 50% occupancy or less. How am I going to make a business model that's working? Right. So that there's one thing to get your business going again, and there's another to break even.
Absinthe is going to be the first out of the gate for you guys, right?
It depends on the final governor regulations. It depends on numbers, but we believe we can make Absinthe work at a third capacity. So we would cut the capacity there to 1/3. We would socially distance the audience and the company from the audience by 6 feet or greater.
Yeah.
And it would become a cabaret venue instead of a traditional theater. And we're literally stripping the theater out today of all its seating to start work on that.
The tent, you mean?
Yeah.
The Absinthe.
Yeah, the Absinthe.
Okay.
The
so
Absinthe
you're going to have tables with two seats all the way around the...
Correct. And we'll have some four tops, and we'll cater for groups, and we'll look at your size of your group, and we'll work out how we cater for that group. Right. So there's things to learn about how we do that, but ultimately we think we can get 222 people in there, and that would be a third of our current capacity. And it's just a question of making the show work. We would choreograph the entrance process, very similar to what they do on an aeroplane now. They choreograph it from row 31, then they call row 30, and we would do a similar thing. And then we've got an idea to choreograph the exit. So there's never, ever a cluster of people trying to get in or trying to get out.
Yeah, we're talking about like the Southwest lineup, where you're in the
similar
A1 to 30 and 30 to 60.
Except because we've got the fortunate thing we have, which was never fortunate when we started, but our foyer is outside. So it's a very safe environment for people to be in, from what I'm reading. And certainly going to Esther's kitchen the other night, sitting outside having dinner, it actually is wonderful.
Yeah, I did the same thing. We've been
Why did I ever sit inside? It's so good outside.
I did the same thing the other day. I was like, I should have done this before, because I hadn't even experienced that. In the case of Absinthe, are there any acts that have been in the show that that won't be able to return right away, just because of the way they're performed?
Yeah, I think we're looking at cutting things like swinging over the audience. We wouldn't do that. We won't initially be using the sway pole act because those artists perform right over the audience. Anything where there's a strong audience integration.
Right.
The Green Fairy usually rolls around the audience.
Puts her hand out.
The Chekhov Joneses sometimes fall off the stage into the audience. Things like that will be re-choreographed, and people will be put at a distance, and then we'll re-choreograph the finale so that not everybody's on center stage. We'll use both stages. We have two stages, and we have an enormous spreadsheet which has every person who works for us in the venue, no matter what their function is, and everybody they come into contact with, and so what their track is, and so how we minimize their contact and how we maximize the safety.
Right. So the tap dancers wouldn't be doing the thing next to the table, for example. What about David O'Meara, bathtub?
We wouldn't initially start with that act, because that does swing out over the audience. But as soon as we can work out a way to choreograph it so we can, that will be an act that we would be anxious to get back in.
Are you talking about taking out all the aerial then? All the aerial acts?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. So it's tough, isn't it?
It is. And again, it's not fully determined right now because we're predicting what the regulations are going to be, and we're planning so that we're prepared. But we will have to adjust, and we really don't know what date we'll be actually opening.
Yeah, the higher-ups haven't given you any other information that we haven't seen publicly about when you'd open, right? You aren't privy to any intel that says, you know what, even though we haven't made the public announcement yet, we're going to be going live on whatever the date is, July 1st or whatever it is.
Currently, my knowledge is that decision rests with the governor, and he's holding that decision. And I don't even know if he's discussed that with the Gaming Control Board. But that will be the process, I believe. It goes from the governor of the Gaming Control Board, that goes to the resort, and then the resort tells me what I can do. So I'm really just waiting for instruction, and we are anxious to abide by all regulation. Yeah. We want to be good partners to not just to the resort, but to Vegas and to our patrons and our employees, obviously.
Can you make money at a third capacity in one of your shows?
We believe we may be able to not lose too much.
This is a temporary environment for you, obviously.
I mean, obviously, but it is for all of us. And but we think that we're at a position where, like you've had to work out ways to work, and we believe there is some obligation to see if we can work out a way to work, rather than just
I've cut my bathtub act, for example.
Right, pack up our caravan and wait. Look, I can disappear to Australia where there is virtually no coronavirus and wait till May next year or something.
Right.
I don't think that's not fair on our employees either. I I think we've got a shot of making a safe environment, and I want to see if we can.
How long is it going to take your cast to be back into performance shape? I mean, I've heard some, like for Cirque Du Soleil, I think it's 1 or 2 days of rehearsal for every week they've missed. That's the way they kind of break it down. How about your cast? Can they come back and be back on stage quickly?
I mean, judging from some of the Zoom calls I've had with some of them, I think, it's like, I think they're fitter than they were. And that's an exaggeration because, doing 10 shows a week keeps them all very, very fit. And I think, but, a lot of these people have been doing this since they were 3 and they don't stop doing it just because they're not working.
Right.
They all seem to be they're very disciplined people, and their livelihood is very important to them, and they work. Right. So I think, some of them will take 2 or 3 weeks where they're involved in multiple people will want to spend 2 or 3 weeks getting their act finalized. And
I'm
back
wondering about
into
Billy
shape.
and Emily, the precision of that act, the skating act.
Right.
That type of thing.
And they've been doing it since they were 3. So, they're...
You're all right with them?
Yeah, they're incredibly hardworking.
What about down the line, Ross? I know that if you have to reopen, what is the next show that would reopen after you get Absinthe in order? Is it depending on which resort? If all the resorts open at the same time, like you're at Cosmopolitan, it's open now. You're at Venetian, which is in operation also with Atomic Saloon Show. What's next? Because I know I think you can buy tickets to 2 of the shows right now, Atomic and Absinthe, but not Opium yet. And
okay,
is that the
that
line?
May well be the case.
Is that the order of shows returning then?
Again, we haven't determined until we hear what the regulation is. And we may open another show first, but we believe it's easier for us to get a business model operating with Absinthe. So that's why we're targeting that to be the first we open.
Oh, I think there's no doubt about that.
And that's not because of demand necessarily. It's just because we control the entire environment. We can socially distance everybody really, really nicely.
The venue itself.
The venue and where everybody works. And we operate the bar, and, everything can be very hand in glove.
When you were sitting there at Mayfair, I had this thought also, and we were all there watching this show, and we were having dinner and watching a pretty, other than the dancers, a pretty full music show, and I was wondering why that show was able to be allowed to perform in that scale of a venue, and something like Atomic wouldn't be. What did you have the inclination that you'd be able to adjust the model for what that room is at the Atomic Saloon now, the old Act Theater, and provide and present it as a bar with entertainment, the same way that Mayfair presents itself as a restaurant with entertainment, and get around the regulations that way?
Yeah, we're anxious not to get around regulations. The governor's said no ticketed entertainment.
Right.
And that's why Mayfair can open, because they genuinely were never a ticketed entertainment, and I'm pleased for them. Obviously we hope and we know that this is a sophisticated market that understands the importance of entertainment and live entertainment, and I'm sure it's front of the governor's mind as to when he can get small room live entertainment open, because I know what's front of mind is he's going to want to get big room, i.e. stadiums, open soon for football. And I don't know when that's planned, but somewhere between what we do with 120 people and what they do with, I don't know what it is,
65,000 at Legion
65.
Stadium.
So but maybe there's a model where they can open with 20,000 or and I imagine they will come and see what Mayfair Lounge are doing and what we're doing and say, right, well, this is how we could adjust some of our things. So, we're waiting for him to say, we're not looking to change our business model that much. We still want to sell tickets.
Yeah, okay. You don't want to go into an environment where you're the ambient entertainment for a 2-drink minimum lounge type show or anything like that, right?
We're not discussing that at this point because, again, we want to be good to be good partners in this. We want to abide by the spirit of what is intended.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about Cirque Du Soleil, because it's one of the drivers here in Las Vegas. And I was talking to Bill Hornbuckle from MGM Resorts International when Bellagio opened, and he mentioned that he was hoping that Cirque could return by the end of this year to the stage, which kind of caught my attention, because I think people who follow Cirque see that as kind of a long time for no Cirque shows in Las Vegas. Can you talk about how important it is for Cirque to be running in Las Vegas for all entertainment as an entertainment driver? Mm-hmm. I know you've often kind of been like a parody of Cirque Du Soleil, and some of your acts specifically are a parody of Cirque Du Soleil. But can you seriously talk about what that means to a production company like yours, because they bring a lot of people into Las Vegas for entertainment purposes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was quoted as saying, Vegas is not Vegas without Cirque Du Soleil performing, and we learned at the knee of Cirque Du Soleil in awe of their shows over the years, whether it was Mystère or O or all the other ones that have come along. And, I hope that their team is able to work out a model that will work for them. I'm not privy to what their running costs are, and I'm not entirely sure how you socially distance the Bellagio O theatre, but I know there's a lot of clever people, whether it's the Coliseum or that theatre or the T-Mobile Arena, looking at it going, okay, how do we do this? Mm-hmm. So I hope they get their shows back. And, if it's the end of the year, I've seen different comments. I've seen comments from their CEO saying, they break even at 34%, and so they could make it work for themselves at 50%. And so you go, well, that's good for them. There's a little margin there.
If you don't adjust ticket prices, Daniel Lamar said exactly that. Right. It's been like 40%. He said that one before too, but. That's an advantage of volume business, I guess. But.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic break even.
Yeah.
There must be some good bids coming in for that business right now. I think it's for sale. So,
yeah, it is.
But I think that, we've all got many, many challenges in working it out, but let's not, oversource this. A lot of people, whether it's Chick-fil-A, working out a drive-through model, which they've done, I think, brilliantly.
Yeah.
Or Mayfair Lounge, socially distancing, or just the way the resorts are handling 3 at a table of 6 on table games, and every second slot machine. People are working out new solutions, and that's important.
Did you really consider putting a show out to the drive-in? You mentioned the drive-in. A lot of people have been looking at that. There've been drag shows at the drive-in. I've heard of adult reviews wanting to go out to the drive-in and do shows that way also.
I think I read that Nick Wallenda might be doing one in Florida.
Okay.
But I think an aerial show at a drive-in is particularly suited to that.
Yeah. There's one in Germany they just opened. It's COVID Circus, they call it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been focused on the theaters we have, because we have an enormous investment in those theaters. And I'm saying, right, well, how do we utilize what we've got already? And not going out to say, well, let's take all our artists and put a show on in the desert. I know friends of mine have put shows on in an imaginary tent, like a soft top tent. They've done, a show, a circus, but with, like in Darwin, Australia, where the weather, it rains at 4:00 every afternoon on the clock, on the dot, and then by 8:00 that night it's beautiful. And so, they've done a circus outdoors with just the king pole and the guy wires, and we talked about that. But the problem with Vegas is it can be so hot and windy.
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
And the wind can be extreme.
We learned that with your original tent here, how the conditions can turn at the 6-month mark of the original tent, Absinthe tent. It was it needed to be replaced or taken away, or
yes. I mean, that's the surprising thing about Vegas, is just how much wind is here.
Yeah, people don't get that until they live here. That's absolutely
wind
right.
and pollen are the two surprising things. I didn't expect there to be so much pollen.
I've in covering the entertainment climate here and getting back to the Cirque Du Soleil, I was been reminded that Cirque was really interested in your company for a while there, a few years ago, and what the world would be like if you had agreed to join in and be under the Cirque umbrella. Why didn't you take them up on their offer and become part of that and merge with them?
Because I think that we were just having too much fun. I mean, they
don't have fun in Cirque?
Well, quite probably. And, I worked with Cirque for, I don't know, nearly 10 years in promoting them in Australia and New Zealand. So I knew many people there, and I knew, I can sing some of their songs, but badly. But it really is an incredible company, but it's a different company, and it's a corporatized company. And, the idea of being acquired didn't kind of sit with us that well. Yeah. And it wasn't a financial thing. It's just that we have got so much we want to do. There's so many opportunities that we see. And I didn't really want someone telling me that I couldn't do it. And maybe they wouldn't have. Maybe they would have said, these are great ideas, Ross, go and do it. But we've taken some pretty big risks. Yeah. And not everybody would take them. And I mean risks financially. We've put a lot of money into different things for our scale. Yeah,
they would be buying you to
yeah, they wanted EBITDA, and that's why. And, it was nothing to do with what played out with this COVID-19. It was just to do with the fact that we were having so much fun.
Yeah, this was long before the pandemic was a thing.
And, we were really excited about proceeding with our ideas like Opium and Atomic and other shows that we have in the pipeline.
Well, it's possible that you might be playing off Guy La Liberté coming back into the entertainment climate and in that world. That would be. Want to get that? Are you going to self-destruct?
No, sorry, I turned it off. But unfortunately,
it's not me.
I turned off my phone, but then I forgot that this thing also rings.
You're not getting your steps in either. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. I know that Franco was speaking to you, and Franco's interested in getting involved. And there's very few geniuses in live entertainment throughout the centuries. Yeah, maybe you can look back at P.T. Barnum or the Ringling Brothers, or maybe Kenneth Feld and what he has achieved with his company, and Cameron McIntosh. I guess I'm just listing off all the billionaires there, and Guy is one of them. I mean, Guy really married commercial knowledge with creative knowledge in a wonderful way. So I think that's great to hear that he may become involved. And I think Bob Iger said that, if you're going to buy a creative company, you want to know what the creative talent is. Right. When he was talking about buying Marvel or Pixar, those sort of acquisitions. And I think that's true of Cirque. If you're going to buy that company, you want to know that someone like Guy is there, or Franco is there, or Gilles Saint-Croix, or whoever is the visionary. You want to know.
Yeah, and it's a great storyline. If it does work out, to have him come back in after selling it off to corporate interests and coming back in to kind of
look. Nobody knows it better, right? He was there, breathing fire on the street when it started.
Literally.
And people say, "Oh, Guy will be coming back." Well, he was there in February. He only just sold his. Yeah. He only just sold his last 10%.
His timing. I mean, everything.
He does it again.
Yeah.
People say he's lucky. I mean, I say
he's lucky a lot, man.
Yeah.
He's a poker player.
Yeah,
he knows.
He's very clever.
He is. What about some of the titles that we've been talking about over the years for Spiegelworld? And one I've been very interested in over the years, the past few years, is We Are Here, the disco dance show that we went and I saw the showcase of it in Brooklyn a few years ago, and had a great deal of fun there. And you even introduced the main character at the Atomic Saloon opening.
Yes, when I believe I was very close to one of my deals being signed.
Yeah, the all four of them. What's his name? Longquist?
Ake Blomqvist.
Ake Blomqvist
is the disco dancing teacher from Finland.
He's based on an actual person,
a real life person who
dance
only
instructor.
Recently passed. I think he was like 96, but he was the original teacher who would train everybody in Finland to do ballroom dancing, and he became a celebrity. And then when disco came along, he said, well, I'm going to teach this as well.
He was an original disco instructor.
I urge everyone to look him up on YouTube. He kind of wears that kind of white crocodile outfits, the tennis outfits, while he's kind of teaching disco dance.
You're absolutely right. Looks like he's on his way to the grass courts.
I mean, he's amazing, and so he was a wonderful character. Yeah, and we drew on all sorts of characters from that period in creating that show, and it's very, very different to our other 3 shows. And speaking to I know all the presidents of all the resorts listen, of course, to PodKats. We still haven't signed a deal. It's not too late. So call today and you can have the next hit show in Vegas for your resort.
Yeah. Where are we?
Don't delay.
What is the status of the show right now?
I think that the status is we've looked at many venues, and we've almost had deals with quite a few. We almost had deals with quite a few venues, but we want the relationship to be perfect. We have 3 great shows, and if we're going to do a 4th, the relationship and the deal has to be right.
Okay, let's. So what are the must things for a show like that? What do you have? What has to be in place?
Well, it's really that we have to be able to afford to do it properly, because that is a higher capital show than the other shows we've produced are. That does cost more because it's 5 walls of LED. And so thereby it's a bit more expensive in terms of capital. So we need to know the space is going to be available for a long period of time if we're going to invest that amount of money in building it out like that. And, we want to make sure the right demographic fit is available to us. And we want to know what the competitive landscape is of a property.
Right.
Like all of those things, play into our thinking. We've always wanted to show at the Venetian. We thought that was a great opportunity. We've always wanted to show at the Cosmopolitan, and we've had a show there for many years now, on and off. But and Caesars, they're all great properties for the sort of demographic. Because even though we're kind of carny and interesting in the way we look and feel, some our ticket prices they can range into the not the stratosphere like some of the headliner artists, but it can be a high end event.
You're in there with the Cirque.
Yeah, and we can sell $1,000 bottle of champagne if that's what you're after.
It's Nile Rodgers still working with you on We're Here.
Yes, he's the music director. Stephen Hoggett's the director.
Hoggett from
Michael Wynn's the writer, and it's incredible creative team. And actually, we've just done a documentary on the completed the documentary on the La Mama workshop we did.
Oh, okay.
Which we're going to do a kind of live stream of one-off, just so everybody everyone who was involved can see it, just as a chance to get together with the whole crew and cast and creative team who are all over the world right now. But it's I always say that the reason Absinthe was successful was because of when we launched in 2011. There was nothing going on. Everybody was still recovering, going, oh my God, And then we launched a show, and there wasn't a lot of new shows coming on at that point. And I think that really helped us. And I think this is going to be a great time for people to launch shows when we're through this. Yeah. And this will end. At some point, life will come back to normal, and so we want to be ready for that, and we want to launch a new show. And maybe we'd originally envisaged a 500 or 600 capacity showroom for that. Maybe we launch with a 300 capacity showroom, and we build as time goes on. But the beauty of that is we haven't built it yet.
So. And there's still it still could go to many suitors, right? We Are Here.
Yeah,
well, I think companies interested, or do you want to be in Caesars Entertainment? Or
well, we're great friends with all our partners, and but that doesn't mean we wouldn't talk to a new one.
Yeah. But you still could. Yeah, you still could. We're going through a lot of, I know that you're a socially conscious individual, Ross. I know this about you and knowing you over the years. And we've had a lot, not only the COVID thing, but a lot of unrest everywhere. Where you were in New York, here in Las Vegas, we've seen it happening all the time. As someone who's a proponent of the arts, who is so firmly aware and passionate about that part of the world, how does someone in your position, are you interested in being a leader in social awareness through your shows at all? I mean, are you taking a look at promoting diversity through your operations, or being outspoken in that way at all? You're now a Las Vegas civic leader through the years. I know it's painful to hear that, but have you considered how Spiegelworld fits into that more that higher conversation?
Yes, we have. And we're very. This week, I'm meant to be in Cuba. It pops up in my.
You're supposed to be in Cuba?
I'm meant to be in. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that in America, but
you could tell me.
I'm Australian. I'm allowed to go there. I don't. And I
think
was
we're
able
allowed to go to Cuba, aren't we?
I don't know if they stopped it, but they started it again. But anyway, we were casting in Cuba this week, and I know because it keeps popping up every morning. Day 5 of Cuba trip. And, I was in Europe in January, and, we have some new artists waiting in Ethiopia with their freshly minted visas, waiting to be told that they can come over and be in our company. That's not to say we're doing it right. That's not to say we couldn't do it better. That's not to say we don't need to review every aspect of our operation. And I think, honestly, I've always been nervous to be a leader in these subjects as an old Australian male, as a guest in this country. But I don't think that answer suffices anymore. I think you have a responsibility to be a leader, and we want to seek a leadership role in the way that's appropriate. So we're doing a lot of talking and a lot of thinking about that now. It's not enough to say we are the most diverse company in Vegas. I don't think.
Are you reviewing the cast makeup in your shows, like Absinthe or Opium?
We do that anyway.
Okay.
As you know, the shows constantly evolve, but this becomes a more important issue for us, and also it's important for us to support these causes. And we want to, but I want to find actual ways we can do it verbally and through our marketing, but also operationally.
Right.
And I see it as a real time of change, and we want to be part of that change.
Are you looking, Ross, at any of the content in the comedy in your shows?
Definitely.
That's one thing, because now I'm looking at it myself. The stuff that makes me laugh in your shows is the Blazing Saddles qualities that we've talked about with Atomic. It's the gazillionaire laying waste to everybody, everybody, all races, especially in the Spiegel tent here at Caesar's Palace. Are you looking at how those jokes land now, and anticipating that there could be a different response when you come back on stage?
Yes, and we talk about that anyway. The comedy has evolved from when we opened. We've changed things for a variety of reasons, and we will continue to make changes. And because things change, and things that happen are in Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles, whenever the year that launched in 1980, are not appropriate now.
74, I think.
1974, there you go.
Even earlier.
And are not appropriate now. And that's why, there was a sense of that being an inspiration, but that comedy was written in the early 70s. A lot of it was written by Richard Pryor, who was, I think, meant to be in it and then didn't end up playing that role.
I remember that's right.
But, I just think that that's not necessarily a reference point for us going forward in what is being said and done on stage for us.
It's interesting because I'm just now, you think about how the gazillionaire makes the comment about the Republicans over there with the gay people, and both sides of those, now you have to look at and say, everything's so divisive politically. Maybe people don't even want to laugh at that.
Well, I think that, the fact is it's a satire.
Yeah,
he's satirizing those issues in order to draw it, and to draw attention and the uncomfortable result
Mm-hmm.
is what makes it comedy. Certainly with the creative team, we're talking about every aspect of that.
Yeah, I think it sounds to me like you have to make sure that the person delivering the jokes is actually the subject of the humor when it boomerangs back, whether it's Gazillionaire or Boozy Skunkton or Captain Cunton over at Atomic. They are always at the end of it the subject of they're the jokes on them usually.
Yeah, I think so. And you've got to make sure everybody's laughing, that it's, that it's not bullying, and that it's actually, that it is seriously funny. Because I think at some point, whenever we can relaunch, I think there is going to be an enormous desire to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are going to be really looking for comedy.
Yeah. I feel like, I would like to see Absinthe about right now. It's time for the return to Absinthe, or any of them any of the three that you've got here on the strip.
I saw Boozy Skunkton the other night, and she said to me she just cannot wait for Absinthe to be on stage. She wants to be there on the opening night. So I thought that was very kind of her, very generous, because she hasn't always got along with Gazillionaire.
Oh, well, nobody's really gotten along with him, I don't think. But he's an effective spokesman.
Competing entrepreneurs there. She's running her saloon and he's running his little empire.
Yeah,
so
I like it. There's natural friction, but I think there's an underlying sexual tension between those two.
Okay.
Also, that you might want to investigate one of these days.
I'm not sure I'm allowed to comment on that.
Okay, I don't think so either. All right, Ross Mollison, what else? Anything else you want to say about your?
No, I just appreciate how hard everybody's worked during this period.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have been putting a lot of time into thinking about how we relaunch and what the world is going to look like when we relaunch, and whether it's the media or our employees who are currently working, putting it all together.
Mm-hmm.
It's a time of great anxiety for people, and I think for us, and especially for our artists, there's a joy deficit in our lives. We're used to going to our shows and feeling the love from our audiences.
Uh-huh.
And that's one thing for me to complain about, that I don't get to do that. But for our artists especially, these people, I was speaking to one artist a few days ago, and she said, I have not had this long off stage since I was 3.
Holy cow!
I have not. I've had a holiday that went for 2 weeks here and there, but I have never had this period where I haven't been on a stage.
It's amazing.
They're used to being on stage and being cheered, and that's part. I mean, and I think and then you start to think about the community more broadly,
mm-hmm.
and the anxiety they feel, and I just long for a period where people can feel the joy that they deserve.
Yeah, that's an incredible thing to think about. I was talking to Wayne the other day, Newton, after the opening here at Caesars, and he said it was in 61 years of performing, the longest break he's ever had.
Right
now.
Wow.
And he's feeling it too. So if everybody's affected, man. Even Mr. Las Vegas, everybody's tired of being cooped up.
Well, he was on the tally. I saw him on the tally with the Gazillionaire when I was in New York, so that was nice.
That's right. That's right. They were part of the whole relaunch campaign. Wayne welcoming people back, and then the next shot was Gazillionaire plugging in your Absinthe electric oak.
Yeah, look, I do think there's so much to be optimistic about, especially for Las Vegas. We're not coming out of this like last time. Clearly Resorts World are going for it. They're completing. We've got that to look forward to next year. We've got the stadium opening to look forward to. I think there's these things that are already in the pipeline that are going to give Las Vegas a boost whenever we get through this.
Yeah, at that point, I was on a radio show the other day with Pat Christensen from Las Vegas Events, who's been around here a long time, and he mentioned the stadium, and he mentioned Resorts World, and also the Sphere that's coming into the Venetian as a live entertainment venue, mostly music, of 18,000 seats. We're going to have we have areas where we never had areas before in this city when this is all at the other side. So,
and I can't wait to get in this boring company thing that takes you around, the loop that I've just heard they're now extending.
That seems like it's going to happen.
World. And it's a fantastic global innovation. I don't believe that's anywhere yet, right?
Not that I've seen. No, not that we've seen. No, that's crazy.
I mean, and then I heard CES had confirmed for January as well.
Next year. Mm-hmm.
That's, there's good things coming.
And they're going to need some way to keep themselves entertained, and that's where Ross Mollison comes in. All right, sir. Well, it's always a pleasure, Ross. You know that. We've been through the whole gig here in Las Vegas, and I appreciate your time and your artistry and your friendship through all of it.
Thank you.
When things reopen, I'll be there. You know that.
I know. Thank you so much, John.